The following video was shot during a group ride through the inner west. It shows a number of interesting road treatments that may be useful for the east-west regional cycleway between Concord and the Bay Run. We'll start with 4 roundabouts. Check out the raised crossings each roundabout features. One of these roundabouts has raised crossings on all 4 roads entering it, whilst the other 3 only have a crossing on one of the roads. These raised sections are not tall enough to seriously impede vehicle traffic. They are just big enough to knock the entry and exit speeds down to a safe level without the risk of tearing off a low-hanging car spoiler or an engine sump. The top surface for each crossing is made of brick or some sort of patterned concrete to provide a different colour and texture. Some have pedestrian crossings on top, but most seem to be speed humps only. The next bit is a long sequence about a rather disastrous crossing using an island refuge. There were 12 of us in this group, and the refuge was only capable of holding 4 bikes at a time. Having never been through here, we didn't know that, and so when a 5th rider tried to enter the refuge, they couldn't fit. Thankfully, a ute driver saw the problem and stopped to let the blockage clear safely, but that didn't stop the irate driver behind them from beeping their annoyance. These things really are about as useful as putting a narrow bridge that can only operate one way at a time on a busy freeway. Next comes the 3 raised and combined pedestrian and bicycle crossings that we encountered on the ride. These all worked quite well, with drivers understanding that they had to stop and give way to us. There's a bit of a lead up to the 3rd one. This shows the road treatment where a shared path has been done in brick, which is a neat psychological trick to let drivers know that they're on a path where they might encounter pedestrians and cyclists rather than a road. There was some confusion up the front of the group when we got to the raised crossing, with the first riders waving through drivers who had stopped. It took a moment to realise that we had right of way here and that the drivers were doing the right thing by stopping. The other side of the crossing was unfortunately a bit of a narrow disaster area, with some chaos ensuing as a dozen riders were suddenly squashed onto a path that was just 1 rider wide. Next, we have an intersection where the entire intersection has been raised and bricked, providing us with a safe crossing point. Cyclists don't have right of way, but the lower vehicle speeds make it easier and safer to get across to the bike path. We now have another shared zone where the entire street has either been paved in bricks or a pattern has been pressed into the concrete. I didn't look that closely to work out how it was constructed. This zone features multiple speed cushions both along it and on each side street leading into it. The next section is mostly separated from the road with concrete islands. Note that every driveway has a green painted section where the path crosses it. The wide concrete islands didn't prevent one parked ute though from partly obstructing the path with the back of their tray. This side street has a raised and brick section to slow drivers entering and exiting the street. Here we have another central raised section in the middle of the intersection. I've put this bike lane in to show both how hard it is to exit at the far end where it does a hard right turn, and also to show off yet another shared zone. Notice the lady coming out of a side street pushing a pram. This next stretch is all from the one bike lane, showing various pedestrian crossings and treatments at side streets. Everything seems to be designed to slow vehicle traffic down to safe speeds where there is a potential for a collision with a cyclist or a pedestrian. This is the last segment. It simply shows the use of multiple speed cushions along this street to keep a lid on vehicle speeds. So what we've seen here is that there are already a lot of useful road treatments in use across the inner west, and that there is a precedent for using them on cycleways in the Canada Bay area.